We're live!
Hi.
Hey, guys! All right, this is the first time I've done this, so you're my guinea pig, babe.
Oh, I love it. This will be fun.
First of all, for those of you guys who haven't met this lovely gentleman, this is my husband, Andrew.
Hi, guys. I'm Andrew. I'm Kristy's husband, and I do have a mustache, but it's a quarantine mustache. I had a quarantine beard for like 2 months, and it was like, oh my God, it gets so big and so itchy, and I was like, you know what? I have time to switch it up and try something a little different.
I like it.
You guys are the first to see it.
The world hasn't seen it.
There's like 7 of you, 8 of you seeing it right now. So this is the big mustache coming out party.
Let us know you can hear us, by the way. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear us. And let us know what you think of the stash.
Yeah, because if I get like a lot of thumbs downs, then maybe we should.
But I give you a thumbs up.
You like it?
I like it.
I thought you were just saying that because you like.
No, I seriously like it.
Okay, so this is the thing that happens when you're in a long-term relationship, like Kristy and I's, is like sometimes like we support each other so much. you kind of have to like, you hear it and then you're like, did she really mean it, or does she just care about me and doesn't want me to feel like an idiot? So I'm not sure. So if you guys could help me with that too.
And it's so funny because every time that I post a video of him and he had that beard, everybody's like, dude, bro, that beard, legit, like all the time. It's a thing.
Yeah, there's like a whole beard culture. I didn't realize it until I was in Mexico for one of my friend's weddings, and we were in a cab zooming through this little town. It's kind of crazy, and then all of a sudden there's like honking on the horn. I turn over and there's a guy. He's waving at me. I'm like, oh, man, do I know this guy? And he points at his beard, and he points to me. And I was like, oh, yeah, I have one too. Yeah, you and me, we're the same.
Yeah, I was like. It's like the motorcycle thing. You pass the guy on a motorcycle and you wave.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it, but it did feel kind of cool. I was like, oh, that guy, we kind of had a moment, you know?
Yeah.
So.
You know what else is like that? Poker is also like that. If you talk to anybody, if you're traveling, you're in an Uber, and someone who plays poker is driving, or you meet someone and they overhear a hand history, they're like, oh, you guys play poker?
Yeah.
That's happened a lot. This guy has played professional poker for, well, we've been together for 15 years, and you were playing professionally before that. So how long?
Yeah. So I'm coming up on 20 years. I started when I was either 18 or 19, when I was supposed to be going to school and college. And I just turned 37. So yeah, it's been a long ride. One of the interesting things that I've just kind of started to like realize is that I get a bit of nostalgia for like the old days in poker. I know a lot of people, if you go on Twitter, and people have been talking a lot about it. I mean, I've just seen some people say some things, but I just remember a time when there was like, poker was just like in its infancy in many ways. And I remember the only way to get good at poker was like, hey man, I saw you raise that hand on the river. Why'd you do that? And he's like, oh, this is why. And then you guys would sit there and talk about it. And then there was no information. And all of a sudden, Bart Hansen came along, some of the podcasts, and then Deuces Cracked, and then training sites, and then solvers. And nowadays people can just jump online and they can go to any number of training sites or download any number of programs. They can get good in like 6 months. And for me, it took me years and years of just like talking to people and trial and error. And I guess a part of me is like, kind of like shakes my fist at the younger generation. Like, you don't know how easy.
You pull up your spectacles. You're like, hey, these kids out here.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys, like, you don't know what it was like when we were coming up, And
okay, wait, babe. You do the impression of someone pre-2003 making a read, and I'll do an impression of someone making a read in 2020. Okay.
Okay. All right. Man, I feel like I just don't feel like you got it. I mean, would you really just raise me here without the nuts? I guess I'm just gonna call. And then I would call, and the guy would be like, I didn't think you had it.
That was pre-2000, 2003, the good old days when we used to play with like Lucky Larry and who were the guys?
Yeah, back at VIP.
Yeah.
I do want to give, so just not to go too much into poker, but I'll give you guys one like gem of a hand history that happened like, I don't know, 12 years ago.
Wait, but you do have to do the impression of 2020 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have to do it or you do it? Because
Okay, 2020. Okay, here's that was impression of pre-2003 making a read. Now 2020 making a read is like, oh man, well, he 3-bet the top of his range and I got the 9-10 blocker with the
game theory
optimal GTO, but like, you
Nash
know,
equilibrium.
Yeah, all the things.
Yep.
That's 2020.
Yeah. So anyway, I just remember like there were so many hands that just happened where you were like I got to the river in the spot against this guy. I'll never forget this hand. It was Aria 2-5. We were like 2K deep to start the hand.
What year-ish?
I mean, this is probably 10 years ago. So like around 2010, maybe even longer ago. And I remember I thought it was so good. You know, I was like all aggressive in there raising and I was like the fearless one. And we had all these bets going in pre-flop on the flop and on the turn. And on the river, he like made a big bet. And I remember thinking like, I was like, at the time I was like, this guy, he's so full of shit right now. I was like, but I only had like king high. I was like, I can't call this guy. So I made like a big raise. And then he thinks for a while and then he's like, he goes all in. And I was like, oh man, like for sure he's bluffing now, you know, like, but I'm bluffing, you know. So I made this big bluff with king high and the board is like, there's so many things out there, you know? And I just remember thinking like, well, like I was bluffing, but now I'm hero calling and I hero called with king high and I had the best hand. And it was the most ridiculous hand ever. It was like a $4,000 pot. But that's how poker was played back then. You were like, I don't think he has it. He doesn't think you have it. So then you raise, then he re-raises. There was no like, you know, looking at the board, like counting combinations, thinking about like how they would play their value. And there were just like these bizarre hands that would happen that were like, they were just so fun. And like, it was just like I don't know. I just had like, I've been thinking back on some of those times recently.
Yeah. And now we're here in 2020 and coronavirus has fired us from our live poker jobs.
Babe, should we talk to the people?
Yeah, let's talk to the people.
How do we do it? That's Raul Gustamon. That's my homie. Johnny Vibes. That's my brother.
Oh, what's up, Johnny Vibes?
This guy up here, Joseph Yu, says, no way. The stash is dope. Let it ride. I'm with you. That's my guy.
Yes. Also, I have questions from the people from social media too, and we can talk to these guys. So you talk to these guys, and I'm going to pull up a question that we have. And also, we need to give a shout out to Uncle Antonio. Uncle Antonio from Italy.
What?
Pier Paolo's uncle. We got to give him a shout out. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He told us to shout him out.
Italy? Wow.
Okay, you talk to the people. I'll bring up the questions.
Oh, Joan Fisher misses the beard. You know what? Like when I have it, it's like it's such a funny thing. It goes away, I'll shave it, and then you'll basically be left with like what you see here. And then it'll come in thick and I'll enjoy it and it'll be nice and thick. And then all of a sudden I'll blink and one day I'll be like, do my neighbors think I'm homeless? Like there's like a fine line between having a good beard and like people calling the police on you because you're either a terrorist or not supposed to be in the neighborhood. So once I get to that point and I start getting the stares, I tend to just cut it off.
Ginny Walker here says, thanks for taking the time to answer our questions. Love you guys. What's the method and tools that you both use to increase your mental toughness with poker? You're both the goats of the mental game. I will say that we have worked very, very hard and still is always going to be a work in progress. And the great thing about poker that I always tell people is that no matter where you are in the game, whether you're an amateur or a pro, or you're just making extra income, use poker to become a better person. And you do that by facing your mental game. And there's so many tools. What do you think is the most important one for you?
I would say, like, first of all, what's her name?
Jenny.
So one thing to think about that when I went through a lot of my tough times in poker, which they still come on a daily basis, I'm still fighting those battles. But one thing that's really kind of brought me comfort is knowing that everybody that has walked the path to get to like where they are, that I want to be where they are, like all the best players in the world, the Phil Ivies, the Daniel Negreanu's, the new generation, you know, the Fedors and all those guys, they've experienced exactly what you're experiencing, Jenny, which we all experience in poker. And once we kind of like broaden the scope to realize that, like,
which is asking themselves if they're good enough, right?
Well, yeah, but like
doubting themselves.
you have to be in the fire, like the
Yeah.
fire of adversity. And like, as much as it burns and as hard as it is, you're like, it's easy to look away and think like, well, how do I like get out of this? How do I not be in this? But all of the strongest, most talented players in the world have been forged in the heat of the most intense heat of that fire. And I think I'm no exception. There were many times for me where I'll never forget, like one time in particular, you picked me up outside of the wind. I remember I had just lost all my money and we had $0 basically, and I was on borrowed money. I lost it all in a poker game. And I was sitting on Las Vegas Boulevard by myself crying, thinking, this is my life, this is who I am, and now I'm nobody because I have nothing and I can't do this. And I remember you pulled up on the strip and I got in the car and like I had some really tough things to face during that time, and that was only just one of the times that stick out to me. So to answer your question more directly, don't seek to look what's outside of the fire or what's happening. Think about what's happening on the inside for you, the things that are coming up for you. As you said, use them to become a better person. Lean into those things and know that this is exactly what's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to, like, there's something here that I'm supposed to learn, and no one can tell you what that is. No one can guide you. I mean, you can get some guidance, you know, here and there, but at the end of the day, like, that's going to be your fight. So, and we've all kind of braved that fight in poker for sure.
Yeah, I think that's such a good story, and I kind of want to pick apart a few parts that you talked about, which is that obviously, first of all, you know, this, I want to say, like, this was at the very beginning of when we first moved from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Vegas, and we were like 22, 23, trying to make it and super broke. And also this was like, you know, more than a decade ago. So we didn't have what we now know are bankroll management skills. We just had no money to begin with. So we couldn't even, we just like moved out there on a whim, in debt, no money. So we like built and went broke. So just to be clear, bankroll management, that's a thing and should be taken care of. But when he was sitting there and he had gone broke again, you know, you really want to ask yourself, like, what do I want? How do I want to build my life? What kind of poker player do I want to be? What's it going to take? And I think along the way, the thing that I saw in you the most was you facing the fear of what else are you going to do if you can't be a professional poker player? You dropped out of school, you know, like what was the back door? And I think, you know, swimming around in that brought up a lot of self-worth, a lot of fear. And when you're at a poker table, you can't be thinking about your whole life and your self-worth and what it means if you lose to make good decisions. Like, it's too much in that moment. And everybody can say, like, yeah, you got to make decisions based on your chips. Okay, that's rational and we get it. But that battle of finding your self-worth, of outside of who you are as a poker player, and really creating a healthy relationship with results and money takes time, and it takes commitment. And we both also had mental game coaches. Like, we have Aaron Steinberg, who's a relationship coach too. We've done a lot of personal development training. We meditate, we journal, we do all the things. We take care of our body, we're healthy. The healthier you are and the healthier relationships are, the easier it is to bounce back when you're in a rut. Because when you're in a rut and you are going through a downswing, you'll have all these questions like, am I still going to be loved? Am I still going to be able to make it? The stronger your relationships are, you can I can't tell you how many times where I took that lonely walk from the poker table to the car with no money in our pocket after a long, and just am I a terrible person? Am I a terrible poker player? And if you have a strong relationship, when you forget who you are, you can look in the eyes of someone that loves you and sees the best in you, and they'll tell you, no, you're okay. You're not a bad person. Like, here's like, let's do this. Let's crawl this hole together. So.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out too, it's like just looking in the chat, Joseph, you just mentioned, is there a general formula for bankroll management? How do you find the balance? I think like that question also, to broaden it to a lot of other questions that I think I've gotten over the years, and I think this one is like a prime example, is I think with working with people, like in the coaching that I've done, what I've actually really found is that oftentimes there's a mosquito. Okay, got him.
Oh, he knows that mosquitoes, like,
they destroy my wife. So
yeah, they kill me.
Oftentimes, sorry for the interruption, but it's all about cultivating your inner voice. Like there's so many times where I just had questions. Like one of my mentors, Cy Watson, who's like just this brilliant poker player, brilliant mind. We still reach out to him for advice. There were a couple big instances in my life where I asked him similar, like I had a question, what should I do? Or like, what do I do here? But in reality, like I had a pretty good sense of what I really thought I should do, but I was almost like looking for like outside validation from someone that I deemed as smarter than me, intellectually, which I think he is, definitely more intelligent than I am. But also there are like situations where like maybe I'm more equipped to make a decision with information or stronger in some areas. So what I realized through that process, and to get to your question, is you really want to cultivate your inner voice. You want to start to like think like deeply, like what do I think? And then what I found is most of the time, the people that I'm working with, they're going to be their best coach. They can work themselves through it, and they get to learn how to trust that voice by making mistakes, looking at like, well, I thought, with my bankroll management, like I really thought about it and I thought this was the amount of money. And then when I got to it and it wasn't, it didn't work out. And then you have to look like, well, what did I miss? Working on solving those problems yourself, working on cultivating that trust in your own voice, because once you're able to do that, you're able to, it'll just permeate all different areas of your life where you'll start to like look inward, make that decision and say, you know what, I'm going to trust myself. I don't need to find the answer outside of me. Not to say that you shouldn't ask other people and that there isn't great information out there to get from others. But at the end of the day, when you're at a poker table or when you're, in a tough decision in that moment, it's you that has to make it. And it's important that you trust the process that you've set up. And so the only way to do that is by trial and error and experience.
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I say bankroll management, I don't think that I have ever heard you say, oh, according to my bankroll management, like I can take this shot or I can play this tournament. So I think that that's really interesting, because as you learn and as you're a poker player, you can ask others, what do they do for bankroll management? How many buy-ins do they think they need? But really it is going to take for you to understand what kind of comfort you need to play at your best. Do you need like a 20 buy-in cushion to risk 2 or 3? Or have your own results show that you're kind of like a less variant poker player and you don't swing 7 or 8 buy-ins, so maybe you only need 10. That's really interesting. I've never heard you say that before, but it makes total sense. All right, so we got some more questions. First of all, Wino Poker wants to know, do we ever fight about hand histories?
Well, to answer your question, Wino Poker, yes, we do, but we've come a long way, because when we first started dating, like we would fight about a lot of stuff.
I was all like, I'm an independent woman. Don't tell me how to play my hands. But then I just realized he's just way better than me.
Well,
he always has been. It's fine.
But it's not.
It's fine.
It's not about. But I don't want it to sound like.
Do you think you're better than me? That's
what it's all about. No, but what I'm trying to say is, we would fight about a lot of stuff in that, like we would play basketball together. Everything was a competition. We would play poker. It was always like we were very competitive. And so we kind of had to learn how to have that balance of like, we can be on the same team even when we're in competition. And when we talk hands, like it's a tough thing when you have 2 people that are really competitive and want win, I guess. But so we do, yes, we definitely have, but much less than in the past.
Yes, yes. Okay, you can read the chat and see what's up.
I'm just like so stoked. This is so cool. I have
This is so
like all
fun.
these people. I mean, just popping in the chat saying hello. It's hard because you kind of like want to go to the chat and make
Yeah,
sure
there's a lot. Oh, I wanted to ask you. Okay, wait. Read one of those. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just gonna call him.
Oh yeah, I called a couple people on the phone on Twitter. I said, that I was gonna call a few of you guys, and I did, and it was so fun connecting. I just want to read this because it's so funny. Okay, someone on Twitter or someone on Instagram says, Kristy, you are too flirty around men and women. Please respect your husband and don't be so sexually promiscuous.
That was a woman or a man?
A man said that on Instagram.
Oh, he got my back. You know, one thing to like speak seriously, like, you know, as I've gotten older, I just really have never been jealous of you in that way. I've always been flattered when people thought you were like gorgeous or beautiful. And I think a lot of it comes from being confident in how I treat you and the things that I do and say and kind of the environment I create. So if I hadn't been kind of doing the things I thought I should be doing, and you were like dressing a certain way or like, you know, whatever, I would probably feel differently about it. But I think I do, like sometimes when that's kind of an indicator for me. If I'm like starting to feel a certain way, I'm like, oh man, I'm really slacking on my shit. I should probably like be a better husband.
That is such a good point. Insecurity comes from a fear that we are not enough. And so like, if you're killing it as a husband.
I mean, I'm trying my best, that's for sure.
You are. And by the way, that guy posted it on this picture, but on Sarah Herring and I will say, whenever we get together, we are like kind of like, like being weird and stuff.
Oh my God. And I have to say, I don't know if you guys follow Kristy. I'm sure some of you do, but her friendship between her Sarah's and Lynn Gilmartin. I mean, I know you have a lot of friends, obviously, but that little like tribe that you guys had from Poker News, you guys are so cute. Like I'll sit around the house and, you know, I'll be playing poker in the other room and you'll be on FaceTime with one of them. And you guys, I'm just like eavesdropping. Like I might be playing poker, listening to music, but as soon as you guys get on the phone, I'll be like, turn the volume down. Because I know what I'm about to hear is going to be gold. And the stuff that you guys talk about and joke about, you guys have such a great relationship and friendship, and I love your dynamic. So, yeah, those are some.
We're going to have, so Lynn Gilmartin and Sarah Herring and I, we used to have a podcast called Pretty Broad, and we're going to have a Pretty Broad reunion just like this soon. So watch out for that. And that's so cute. Yanni Vibes is in the house. What's up, Johnny? And I know Olga Vibes is also hanging out.
Is there anything like I'd love to answer some questions? Maybe we could. Did we already answer the ones people sent in?
There's a couple
maybe
on
we should
Twitter.
Answer one more.
Yeah. There's a couple.
Sorry, we're just getting kind of used. Like we've never done this before. Oh my God, Gus is in the chat. Gus Flows.
Gus!
Oh
my gosh. How are you?
Yeah, so yeah, we're just kind of freestyling it. Thank you guys for being patient with us. Andy Wynn, thank you for the compliments on the porn stash.
Yes.
I feel like I look like my dad with this thing. He's a police officer in Indiana.
Did you both always have goals that aligned as a couple professionally, or did one of you have to convince the other to drop what they wanted to support the other?
Well, one thing's for sure. When we first met, my life changed radically right when I met you, because I was living in Indiana with my brother Johnny. We had an apartment. He bought this condo, and it was just he and I. I was like college age, and I just saw myself like maybe working in a factory, having a family at like 20 years old, and you know, maybe making like 30, 40K a year, and like living a small in Indiana. And I was kind of happy with that. I was thinking like, oh, this is going to be my path. And then I met you, and I was like totally smitten, like very much in love, falling in love with poker as well. So both of you guys at the same time. And you were like, I'm going to Vegas and you can either come or you can stay. And I was like, it was kind of like a moment for me where I was like, to your question, whose question was it? To Turtle Poker?
Double Down.
Oh,
or Vegas, I don't know.
Okay, so to your
Down.
question, yeah, for me, I had to basically like say, I saw my life going a different way, and I don't want to do this, but
you didn't want to move to Vegas when I said that?
Not initially. Like I was terrified. I mean,
yeah, because you had your life planned out.
Yeah, I mean, I was also young too, and I just, moving to, I'd never really been out, I could never really see myself doing that, and so yeah, we've definitely had a few of those moments. Those are really tricky situations to navigate. I will say one thing that I think is extremely important in that situation and all things. I was just on a poker call, and like I am very process oriented. So once you make that a part of your life, everything is like you look at it and you're like, okay, well, I need to have like a process in order to move through this. And being able to have a process of working through difficult conversations is very important. Like how we argue, how we fight, we need to make sure we do that in a certain way. And that was something that was really important to me early, because just things from my childhood or things that I grew up with or seen or heard, I knew that I didn't want to have in our relationship. So now when we have our fights, we run our fights through this process, through this system that we've created. And when we have these tough conversations, we have a certain way of doing it. Otherwise, like one of us is standing in a parking lot throwing keys in the middle of the street at 4 o'clock in the morning. And
it wasn't me. It happened once.
Alert.
But
Yeah.
the most important part of that process is that we are on the same team. So if there is something that one of us wants to pursue professionally, for example, there was a time when Andrew said to me, he's like, you know what? I want to play higher stakes, and I need to figure out a way to do that. And there were several ways of doing that. One is getting staked, getting coached, risking more of our own money. And it was very important to him to push himself as a poker player. And at the time, I was there was a part of me that was like, I don't know, like I kind of want to, have babies and write a book, and I don't really want to live in Vegas anymore. So how do we make that happen together? Because a few years ago, we really had to work through this process of like, one, we're on the same team. Two, we make decisions based on the vision that we want to have for our lives. And three is that we always want to create win-wins where like we figure out a way to make things happen. Like we'll just figure it out. And so in that case, whenever one of us really wants something, we always figure out a way to support each other. So if we have differing opinions, we just have to figure it out and make sure that, and something that I realized is like, compromise is this thing that everybody says couples should do. We need to compromise. But really, I think that if you talk about where you want to go together, life-wise, you don't ever have to compromise. You just figure out a way where you both win. And that takes time, and sometimes you have to quarrel over it for a few days, but it's worth it. So nobody walks away feeling like they had to lose in order for you to move forward.
Yeah, and I want you guys to be like, understand too, like this is kind of like the finished product of, a 15-year relationship. Obviously this stuff is really messy. It's really hard. Like we can spit out these concepts and, and talk about this. And I get that it's a lot harder in practice sometimes, but the truth is you start now, you focus on doing the best that you can. You seek advice from others. You do the best that you can to work through those things, figure them out yourselves. And over time, you'll get better at it. Your relationship will, it'll reflect, even if like, maybe it doesn't feel like it in the first couple times that you try to like implement new things. I did want to say one thing about a question I saw on here real quick. Was like a big thing that I've gotten a tremendous amount of value out of is just having mentors, seeking out people that have been to where I want to go. And obviously we can all like, okay, of course, yes, like having a mentor is going to be beneficial and it's going to be good for you. Where I found it was like the difference between myself and a lot of people that I've seen is that it is really tough to like put yourself out there and say, like, maybe you have a friend that's really good at poker, or you have some friends that have a great relationship, or somebody that has a business that is in the same space as you that you know that's doing really well. It's a big leap to go from, hey, we're friends or an acquaintance, to come to that person humbly and say, I would like to learn some things from you. I need to like, I mean, just that simple act is a very vulnerable.
You're up for rejection.
Yeah, and like not just up for rejection, but you put yourself in a vulnerable situation against someone that you deem to have like some superior qualities, or some high virtue, some high qualities, and that's a very scary thing. And once I got past that and was able to really ask some people to like help mentor me, they did, you know. And I'm sure like I could have gotten rejected, and I'm probably will. Yeah, and it's okay, because what I've been able to get from those people is something that I'll have forever. Like I couldn't be where I am without a couple of those people. One being Cy Watson for sure, another being Jonas Hagstrom, my brother. A lot of these people that I've just like really had to come to and be like, look, like I don't know how to do this. And so the reason why I bring that up is because for those of you out there that are maybe struggling with poker or a relationship or whatever the thing is, look at where you're afraid to make a big statement on, this is important to me and I'm willing to be vulnerable and like ask for help, because making that step is something that I think a lot of people haven't been able to do. And so if you're in that boat, I would just encourage you to, you know, maybe swallow your pride and reach out to someone that you've you know looked up to for a while, and say, a lot of people are willing to help. I know from myself, like a lot of times, you know, I'm in a position now where like I love helping as much as I can. And so if anybody ever reaches out to me, I drop what I'm doing, I take my time, and I give the most thoughtful responses that I can. And even if I'm not going to coach you for money or whatever it is, I will do my best to send you on a path that I think can be helpful for you. And I know I'm not alone in that. So I just wanted to speak in that and hopefully inspire some of you to be a little vulnerable and ask for some help.
Take it into your own hands and ask. And it's interesting. I also think though that when you ask, if you really want to get all the way into being mentored, you also want to offer something. Mm-hmm. You also want to make sure that you've done some work beforehand to be at the level where you can get the most out of actually being mentored. And I know a lot of those, you know, your mentors too, you offered a lot in relationship, and there's a lot to that. And actually, and I know that, you know, so many people have been wanting to get coached by you, and you can't coach everybody that asks. But there is also, I mean, just to touch on this, an opportunity. You and Johnny are doing a little mentoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he's accepting videos right now. You can go to Johnny Vibes YouTube channel. I think his latest video is showing how you guys can do that. Andrew's going to be helping out and coaching. I might get in there a little bit. And yeah, that's and also he's the best. He answers every email. Should I give him your email? Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
amofoshow@gmail.com. Amo, the number 4 @gmail.com. He'll do his best. I do my best too, but I also have like, I think that just like you were saying about intuition and asking things for yourself, I also have very strict boundaries about myself and social media. So I don't always answer, but I try when I can. I know we want to don't want to be on here for too much longer because I don't think my camera has enough battery. So we want to wrap up and answer some of these questions.
Oh, James Rosenthal, man, it's cool to see all these blasts from the past and all these new people popping in. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's so fun.
It's like, especially in quarantine, where we're like, we haven't really, I'm sure you guys are experiencing it too. It's challenging to connect with people, and being able to even do it virtually as we're doing now, it feels great. It's something that I very much miss, and I can't wait for a lot of this to die down so we can do it on a more intimate level.
Yeah, intimate. Let's get intimate. Okay, what's Kristy baking next? Probably mixed berry pie, 'cause it's my favorite thing. I'll eat the whole thing. Thoughts on Bovada MTTs? Don't play Bovada, so couldn't tell you. Poker question, the bankroll. We kind of talked about bankroll earlier, so if you want to go back and listen to earlier in the video, you can. Without sharing too much secrets, top 3 advice to succeed in low live stakes games.
Okay.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, go.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
1, have really solid pre-flop ranges. Know what you should be raising under the gun, late position. That will help your game immensely. Number 2, don't bluff very much. In low live stakes games, nobody folds. All you want to do is you go big for value, big for value.
Yeah, and you nailed it. Like, people, like, you want to play strong hands. It's very easy to, and the more casual player, like, poker's a fun game, right? You want to go in there, you want to play poker, you want to have fun. Now, the challenge is when you play poker more correctly, you do a lot more folding. There's a lot more like re-raising pre-flop and not calling pre-flop, so that you kind of have to like step out and be a little more bold, which can be challenging for people. So being able to start to recognize those things are huge. So you basically, and you don't want to bluff people that don't fold,
which is mostly
low stakes poker. So and to flip it around, like, people are not bluffing all that much in low stakes poker when they start betting a lot of money. So a big thing that holds people back at the lower levels is that they find themselves calling too much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have aces and they re-raise pre-flop. They bet the flop, they bet the turn, and then on the river, the flush gets there, the guy goes all in for a lot, and then they end up calling with aces because they want to sleep at night, because they can't know if they made a good decision if they fold, so they call. Those are the things that really keep people at those lower levels.
Great. So James Rosenthal says, what are 3 things you do every day that is a must, can't be poker or working out? For me, every single day, I journal, I drink coffee, and I meditate every day in the morning, every single day.
Yeah, and I'm almost daily with the meditation now. I've been kind of hit or miss, but that's something it's so tremendously important. And I know, just to speak into it real briefly, it's tough because a lot of people ask me, people like, how do I meditate? I want to meditate. I sit there, and after like a minute, I'm just like super bored. Am I doing this right? Is it, I'm supposed to be breathing. What am I doing? You start with a couple minutes. You start with 1, 2, 3 minutes, and you just work on your breathing. There's nothing to do. You're not going to be doing it wrong. You just start. It's called a practice. And then what you want to do eventually is you want to get to a place where, like, that is, for me, that's like my play space where I like there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. It's a moment for me to check in, breathe into my body, and feel like, oh, like today I don't feel well. Like I'm kind of angry. Like I don't want to do anything. And then I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. And like, I like really take a moment to stop and look inward on like how I'm feeling. Maybe I feel really good. Maybe I'm super distracted. And what I've found is, like, especially as I started reading, which is another thing I've been doing almost daily, which I'm definitely picking up more now in quarantine, is I'm way more focused when I read now, because the meditation attention, I'm so aware when my mind starts to shoot around from the practicing of the meditation, that like when I read, I used to just always be thinking about something else, and I'd have to reread and reread. Now it's getting a lot better, and I definitely attribute it to meditation. So not to like push the meditation on you guys, but I think really
push it. It's fine.
Really explore it for yourself and be patient with it. If you're not like, start small and you're not going to be doing it wrong, and use that time however you like. But I definitely recommend that to people. And then also the last thing, just you said 3 things. Like I walk my dog and I do it like very intentionally because she's old and I just love on her. Like what is she stopping to smell? And like, like, does she come over to me? Does she want a pet? Or does she, is she not feeling well? Maybe I should get down on the ground with her and just like love on her for a moment. Like, is she smelling this, whatever? And it's like, I just be with her. I don't like, when I go out and I walk, I don't just like have it be like a task. I try to really lean into the experience of like, I'm going to wish so much that I could like have this moment and I don't want to waste it.
Yeah.
Because
that's
as she
a
gets
practice
old,
of mindfulness too.
Yeah.
Also, like if you guys ever play poker and you're like, if you've ever had a hand and you're like, I know I'm not supposed to do this right now, but I'm doing it anyway, and you like shove or you call, that's a sign you might need to meditate. It's the space between like an action and a reaction. It's that tiny space where you're like, it's time for me to act, and I'm just doing it mindlessly. That's a sign that you might need to meditate. Meditation is also for other people. Here's her pup. I don't know if you can see her. Her name is Dallas. She's how many years old?
She's 13.
She's 13, so that's like 90 or something.
Yeah,
and dog years.
One thing that I love about dogs, I don't know if you guys have pets or not, but I remember so many times when I would come home from a really bad session or just feeling so terrible, and just there's like nothing. When I would see my dog, I wasn't even in my mind that I was going to like see my dog. All I wanted to do was go in my room and lay down and feel like crap. But then I would just see my dog, and it's like there's nothing I could do wrong in her eyes. Like, she doesn't love me any less in this moment. If anything, she loves me more because she comes over to me knowing in like a way that's like, oh, are you okay? And like she's been there since the beginning of our relationship. We adopted her pretty quickly after we got together, and so yeah, she's been a huge part of our life. And we're trying to have babies now, which I think a lot of you guys know. So yeah, we're pretty far along in that process. And
far along in the IVF process. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So.
Which is a whole nother thing, which we're not even going to start talking about because we're trying to wrap things up.
Okay, yeah.
But it made it sound like we're pretty far. Like, oh, like, do I have, I mean, we're pretty far. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for sending in questions and hanging out. It was super fun. We're kind of all over the place today, a lot of different, but we kind of touched on a lot of topics that I think are really interesting, and we can probably go deeper into some. I know one of the biggest things that people ask about is how to deal with downswings. And this is definitely those opportunities that poker brings you to become a better person, a stronger person, a more loving and self-aware human. And Andrew has had one of the biggest downswings of his entire 20-year career last year, just before coronavirus. So we have a lot to say on that. So if that's something that you guys want to hear more about, we'll definitely come back. Just let us know, give us a like, or write in the comments. And
I'm so grateful you guys showed up. I mean, I know, like, to me, like, having one person show up and wanting to interact was going to be a huge win. I'm like super grateful, and I would love to answer any questions off stream, on stream. Just reach out to any of us. We'll be around.
Yeah. Thanks, Benjamin Adler. We will do this again. All right. Stay safe and healthy out there, and
adios, amigos.
Hey, Brian and Joe and Daniel. Thanks, guys.
Adios.